Hi, I'm Rebecca from the Central London Careers Hub. Welcome to our podcast series, Spotlight. In this series, you'll hear from careers leaders showcasing their careers provisions and also hearing from our cornerstone employers and partner employers.
Hi Marcelo, thanks for joining me today from Millenium Hotels and also one of our partner cornerstone employers, a selected group of employers who demonstrate good practice in the careers education space, also work with the Careers Hub on a strategic level and ensure young people have the information to make those informed decisions. So it's really valuable to have you today representing the Cornerstone Employer Group. Why don't you take us through your role, a bit about Millenium Hotels, and perhaps your career journey?
No, definitely. Thank you very much for having me here to start with. It's always a pleasure to talk about, future careers, how young people can join, the workforce, and especially, I'm very passionate about hospitality. So I hope I won't overdo it, but it's a passion of mine. So a little bit about myself. My first work in hospitality, I started working in events, and I spent half of my day polishing glasses and polishing cutlery. Learned a lot, became a waiter, then became a bartender, and then worked usually in the restaurant size of hotels. At one point in my career, I decided that I wanted to work in human resources, and I had an opportunity to join a large hotel group where I've learned a lot, progressed within the last, I think I've been in hospitality now for 17 years and in HR for 14 years throughout this journey. Have experience in recruitment, training, development, all these different aspects. And I've been with Millenium now for 5 years. I'm the regional director of human resources, which is kind of like I work with all or 21 hotels in between UK and Europe to foster, best service we can do to our guests and to encourage young people to join the industry, which again, as I said, is a passion of mine.
Fantastic. So it's so valuable to have you here today with all your years experience, your role now. Can you take us through the developments in hospitality that you've seen across the years you've been in the industry, and perhaps touch on the pandemic as well, where you've seen things develop since then, before, during and after?
Yes, definitely. And I think the pandemic was a really hard time for everyone. And it was very tough 2 years for hospitality in particular because all our hotels were closed. Pre-pandemic, it was always a booming kind of industry. A lot of people wanted to work in hospitality, in hotels or restaurants. During pandemic, we lost a lot of people. Unfortunately, it was the same time with Brexit. So a lot of our workforce in London is transient people that came from Europe for, I would say, a year or two to improve their English, to get some experience. That stagnated after pandemic, and trying to rebuild was really hard. I think 2021, 2022 was a rebuilding, a rethinking about how do we operate hotels and how do we operate the hospitality as a whole. And more, we're trying to attract more people to join. It's a really fun industry. I have friends that I've met 17, 18 years ago. We still catch up, for a drink from time to time. And that's the bond you create when you work in hospitality. Definitely now you can see more and more people coming back to travel, experiencing city breaks, experiencing international holiday breaks. So we, compared to some other industries, I can see a lot of stagnation in terms of recruitment. We continue to grow. We continue to recruit. I can say that across our hotels, we have about 500 positions currently open. So welcoming anyone with a passion to join.
Fantastic. Would you say that as we left that pandemic and started to rebuild again, you mentioned attracting new talent, people to join. Did that change the strategy of attracting people from where it was before 2018?
Yeah, I think, as I said, before the pandemic, we had this transient forward that would come from Europe. Since pandemic, it stopped. So we've been trying to do is encourage more and more people to think about hospitality as a career, not just a stopgap job to get a little bit of money between, finishing school and going to university or doing summer breaks. So that's when we start working a lot more with schools. I would say that we always worked with school, but it's becoming more and more important to try to encourage people to experience, to see what it is to work there, and to think about hospitality and work in hotels and restaurants as a long-term career. Developing a lot of their own skills, interpersonal skills, product knowledge, So a lot of focus has shifted from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic in trying bringing people that wouldn't think about that as a long-term career, try to upskill those in terms of the interpersonal skills and the technical knowledge.
You mentioned working with schools, finding local talent, I guess, who are going to be leaving school soon, leaving college soon. How have you been working with the Careers Hub to work with those schools? What are you doing? What's the process?
So I believe we started initial conversations with the Careers Hub about a year or so ago to try to understand what the needs are of the schools, what they want to try to inform the students in terms of different opportunities. I believe we are the only hospitality group that's part of the Careers Hub, and if I'm wrong, please edit this out. But we've been working with them, and we have, since the beginning of the year, inviting students to come and visit our hotels. When they come in, we show them around, we show them the rooms, we show them the work of, for example, a housekeeper, how they clean the rooms, the work of a waiter and a bartender, how they make cocktails, the work of a receptionist, how they welcome guests when they arrive. But we also have been engaging with teachers. So we're trying to show them the possibilities and opportunities of working in a hotel. And a lot of teachers, I think, still think that after school you should go to uni or you should go to college. And there's a lot of other opportunities. You can get degrees while working. And that's a little bit of an apprenticeship. I don't know if everyone is aware of that, but you could get a qualification and even a bachelor degree level qualification while working and while earning.
You mentioned working with teachers there as well as students. What's been the purpose of inviting teachers, school staff to visit hotels and understand the industry?
Yes. And I think it's to get them to think about what else a student could do after they finish the school. Again, possibly a lot of teachers think you have to finish school, you go to uni, you follow your education. But by giving them the opportunity to see how hotel operates, they can go back to schools, they can go back, where they're tutoring the students and they're thinking, what am I going to do next? And by looking at the hotels and the different roles you have in a hotel, they can say, maybe you would like to do this or that, different roles within the hotel. And if I can talk a little bit about different roles in the hotels, there is a range of different opportunities. A hotel is a living, breathing beast. You do have, most people see, whoever, when you come to a hotel, you see the bar, you see people serving, you see people checking you in, or when you go to your room, you see somebody comes and clean. But to make it work, we have a full team that's in the back of house from finance, people working in finance, people working in human resources, people working in engineering. So maybe, you like to work with your hands, and that's what we're trying to show the teachers as well. You go to a hotel, you see that front, but there's these other departments with people that like to use in their hands and use their motor skills. There is people that they may want to do a more academic kind of job, a more office job, and you do have marketing, you do have human resources, you do have finance. So within this beast of a hotel, and some of our hotels have 800 rooms, 300 people working in that day in, day out. You can find any kind of career style that suits your interests. And that's what we're trying to imbue to students that come and to the teacher. So give them an overview of what the students could do if they decide to join a hotel or the hospitality industry.
I'm pleased you've mentioned that breadth of roles in the industry. I wonder if you can touch on different routes into the industry. How can students who are considering working in hospitality begin that journey? Where do they go?
Yeah. So there are several different ways you can join a hotel. Most of the hotels would have a careers page. You can go online, search for, somebody close to your area. There is quite a lot of job boards that you can define an area specific to you, and they show you jobs. If you Google, and I don't know if I can say that, some of these brand words. Apologies if I don't. But if you Google a waiter or a receptionist or hotel, you have a list of jobs that are available. That's one way. Another way is knocking on the door, popping in, saying, "Can I see the manager? I'm looking for a job. Here's my CV." And we at Millenium, we do some workshops in terms of CV writing as well. So if you follow our LinkedIn page, from time to time we release some tips on how to do a CV. And for students, it can be quite difficult because they say, I have never worked before. So what do I write in there? And we can help out, putting together a CV. But knocking on the door saying, hi, I'm looking for a job. That's me, a big smile. That's my CV. Can you call me up? That works a lot. There is a way of, entering if you're looking for qualification. That's the apprenticeship schemes. So a lot of hotels would open some windows of applications throughout the year, usually around March time or around June time, getting close, when people graduate or when they finish their GCSEs. So if students are looking for a job and a continuing education while working, and apprenticeships would possibly be one of the best routes. We usually open apprenticeships throughout the year. And for 2025, we're looking into open a cohort or like a group of intakes that people can start together around March time and around June time.
March and June time, are they the typical times of years that apprenticeship applications open?
That's usually when you would get applications for multiple roles. So you would apply to a start in September, which is pretty much aligned to when your academic year would end. Give a little bit of break for holidays, and then you would start off after summer. But that said, you can start working at any time, and you also, while working, you can, if you like the job and if you want to progress, you can decide to join an apprenticeship while working. So you don't, for you to be an apprentice, you don't have to join as an apprentice. You can always kind of start working in an area that you have passion about, and then see if you want to progress and if you want to get a qualification. And while at work, you get the opportunity to join. We currently have about 10 employees that start an apprenticeship in the last 12 months. So they were working with us and say, I have this interest in getting a qualification to continue within the industry. I just finished, my GCSEs or my A levels. You can do different levels of apprenticeships, and maybe I can touch on that a little bit later. So they join an apprenticeship while working. So I think those are the routes. You can search online. You can knock on somebody's door. You can look for a specific program for apprenticeship. So when you start, you're already working towards a qualification.
We're talking about apprenticeships. Can you touch on the available apprenticeship roles? What sort of areas in the industry do they involve?
So as I mentioned, in hotels, we have multiple different roles that somebody can join. At Millenium, we sponsor or we enroll people in apprenticeships for various different roles as well. We have people doing HR qualifications. We have people doing finance qualifications. We have people doing culinary qualifications. So to become a chef. So when I left school and say, I really like cooking. Can I learn the skills? People doing culinary qualifications. The most common is hospitality related. So you learn about service, about the processes of working in a hotel. And a lot of people that start doing the hospitality apprenticeship then progress to a managerial apprenticeship. So within Millenium, we pretty much caters for all different roles and apprenticeships. We have about 12 different colleges, universities, or apprenticeship providers that help us with the courses. And again, different industries would have different apprenticeships, but nowadays you pretty much can get a qualification in any field that you want.
The students can find the research online. They can even be proactive and go into a hotel, find I'm looking for an apprenticeship, a role. And you mentioned that there are CV writing workshops, perhaps even interview workshops. So we know where students can find them and start their application. What does Millenium Hotels recruitment and hiring practice look like? What would students expect after they've applied?
Yeah, so if you're applying during an intake of multiple people, you be invited to a session where you're going to talk to some of our recruiters. That tends to be like a group activity. You do a few games and they assess, how do you interact with other people. Out of those people, the next stage would be an interview, and usually would be interviewed by a manager within the department in the hotel. So if you're interested in food and beverage, and food and beverage is working with food, you can be a waiter, you You can be a bartender. Then you would be seen by a food and beverage manager or a restaurant manager. And if you're interested in working in the kitchen, then the head chef of the hotel would then have a chat with you. We don't look for skills. And it's funny, right? Whenever you're looking for a job, people say, what do you know? What have you done? In hospitality, it's a lot more about passion, about attitude, about willing to learn. And especially when it comes to apprenticeship, I think what we look most is how engaged you are, how interested you are, how much you want to learn. And that's pretty much the process. It's quite simple, straightforward process.
Given that we're now in more of a virtual world, obviously those group activities would be in person. There's clearly evidence now that interviews can typically take place online. Is that practice at Millenium Hotels, or would a student expect to be interviewed in person on site?
Yeah, I mean, there could be a virtual interview, but you would definitely have a face-to-face interview. And one of the reasons for that is I believe, and that's what I try to imbue within the company as well, that it's a two-way process. So it is as much as we finding the person being the right for the job, but the person also seeing, oh, this is the place I want to work. So if you only have a virtual interview, and then let's say you're successful the first time you come in, you won't feel the vibe of the environment. You won't see what the day-to-day is. So a lot of our interviews sometimes is part of, do you want to spend about half an hour in the department seeing how things work? Because for us, it's as important. Whenever we take an apprenticeship, that's a 12 to 18 months commitment that a company is making to develop them. So the last thing that we want somebody join and say, oh, that's not for me. So to answer the question more directly, yes, it's very likely that within Millenium, you would be invited to a presential interview in one of the hotels.
Brilliant. I've asked a lot of questions about what students or people applying can expect from your practices. What do you expect from students, people entering the job market? What skills should they have? Or what are you finding that's missing? What skills are missing at the moment?
So again, in hospitality, the great thing is that we can always teach skills, and either doing an apprenticeship or a normal entry job, we will train the new employee, especially if they haven't had any experience. We'll train the basic skills of how to make a drink, or how to set up a table, or how to welcome a guest and enter the details on the computer. What we look the most when we're recruiting somebody is their attitude. It is, are they smiling when they come to talk to you? And that's kind of like a little tip for anyone there, come to an interview, smile to the person you're talking to. And that, because that's what we want to do when our guests come in. They want to be received with a smile. Sometimes they've been on a plane for 12 hours to arrive, in the UK. And then they may have another 2 hours to get to the hotel. It's a long trip. All they want to be is feel welcomed when they come in. And that is, without being I don't want to be superficial, but that's what we look at. Somebody's friendly, somebody's willing to learn, somebody's willing to learn from their mistakes, and we will all make mistakes when we start. That's the key points when we look for somebody when they're entering into the sector.
Would you say those personal skills, enthusiasm, passion, is that valued more than grades in the industry?
Much more. Yes, and again, there is so many different areas you can work in a hotel. I mean, maybe you weren't very good at math, maybe you weren't very good in English, but you're good in crafts, and like an engineering apprenticeship in engineering, maybe what you want to do. Maybe you're really kind of savvy in computers, and then working in reservation and reception, you're going to have this interaction with those kind of skills you've learned. I think a lot of teamwork helps. So if you've been involved in sports activities, team sports, that's a great thing to showcase when you prepare your curriculum or your CV. People see that you can interact well with other people, and that's key for success within the industry.
Brilliant. Is there any direction or instruction you could give to school careers leaders or teachers? What can they be doing to best prepare their students?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. And I think if they can help their students experience some of the different kind of work opportunities that there's out there, that's a great way to encourage students to think about if they don't want to pursue a university degree or college degree, what can they do? I think teachers going to events, for example, the Careers Hub, and experience what the industries offer to their students would open their views to different routes after finishing school. I think we have to break a little bit of stigma of apprenticeships. There is a lot of countries in Europe that almost 50% of their school leavers start a formal education via work through apprenticeships. And that's a little bit of what we're trying to do here as well, to say that, maybe you're not as academic, maybe you still want to get a qualification, but you also want to start working. You want to kind of move around. You want to earn your own money. And there are opportunities to do that now in the UK with the apprenticeship scheme. So going back, so teachers, if they want to open the students' eyes to what's out there, participate in those company visits. Bring their students, go yourself, find out, ask all the questions you can around the community. I'm sure there's other companies and industries that are willing to engage with the schools to show what's out there. And then I think for students, it is, also kind of try to find out what you liked in doing by doing work experiences while, doing your last year. By if you're taking a little bit gap year between deciding what you want to do next, is trying to get some work experience, like 2-3 months during summer working in different places. In hospitality, we're always looking for people to work during summer and during Christmas. Those are some of the busiest periods for us. So there is always opportunity to experience what you can do or what's out there, and then you make a decision if you want to continue within that career or if you want to try something else.
Great. Could you explain a little bit, what are the key benefits or perks of working in hospitality?
I mean, I love this question because I've been there now for almost 20 years, 17 years working in hospitality, and sometimes you forget some of the things. So one of the things that's great, it's the work environment. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is tough sometimes, and depending on the job, you may be standing for 8 hours, but it's also a lot of fun. So you make a lot of friends, and that's not a benefit that people show on the career side. But we are people business, and people are nice by nature. Otherwise, you won't survive in hospitality. So you make a lot of friends, and you find a lot of nice people out there. So that's an intrinsic benefit, I would say, that's not necessarily listed on a job advert. Career progression is something that it's fantastic in hospitality. And when I talk about career progression is, how fast can you progress within, your work? So you can start as a waiter. How long will it take you to come to the next level and to become a supervisor? And how long does it take you to become a manager? And that's hospitality is one of the fastest industries for you to progress up to a manager level. My experience is if you're dedicated, if you work hard, if you're willing to learn, within 5 years, you can be leading a team of 15 to 20 people. And I have a lot of examples within our hotels of people that started, as a waiter. They apply themselves and they progress quite quickly. So I've covered a little bit of the work environment and friends you can make. I think I've covered a little bit of, if you want to be a manager, then, if you want to lead people, hospitality is for you. But there are other kind of great opportunities and great benefits of working in hospitality. In Millenium, as most of the other hotels, they offer discounted accommodation. So if you like traveling, Millenium has about 120 hotels worldwide, and you can get staff rate, which is almost 50% of our asking price, which is great. You can also have discounts in our restaurants and bars. So, you can take your friends for a birthday or, for a celebration and just pay half the price you would normally pay. You do get free meals on duty. And again, people, oversee that. But nowadays, if you're working retail, if you're working in most of other industries, you have to go out and buy your own food. You can spend about like £5 to £10 just buying a sandwich and crisps. So you get full meals, and sometimes breakfast while you're working, depending on the time. We provide uniforms. We provide a lot of different learning platforms. Millenium has My Millenium Academy, where you can learn specific things about the job, things about legislation related to a job, but also different soft skills. Well, I think there's a little bit of a nutshell. I could list out a plethora of benefits, but summarize, I think it's work environment, making friends, progression within your career, traveling the world for cheap. You get quite a lot of other benefits that are intrinsic to your long-term career.
I like that you've mentioned career progression, because it sounds like you yourself have gone from, you'd mentioned like cleaning the glasses, all the way up to your role now as regional HR director, I understand?
Yes, that's it.
Students often hear HR. It's often some of the information they access at school is about HR, and a lot of students share they don't even understand what HR stands for. And then further than that, well, what does someone in HR do? So explain a little bit.
Yes.
HR team, what do people in HR do? And then perhaps you in your role specifically, what do you do?
Yeah, definitely. So HR stands for Human Resources, and Human Resources is a discipline within management that's focused on people. You can see a lot of companies calling their HR or Human Resource department about people department or people and culture department, and pretty much what Human Resources department or people and culture department do is look after the people. So it goes from covers the full employee life cycle, from finding the best talent or future talents to join our hotels, and that's part of recruitment, to developing them within their role, and a lot of professionals that follow these areas, they're called learning and development professionals or learning and development managers, and to preparing them to take on a new job. So you could start your career by engaging with somebody in HR when they recruit you, when they call you and say what you're looking for. I've seen your CV. Tell me more about yourself. Then when they join, they will learn the basic skills to do their job. We would then move on to, are you ready to the next step? They would assess your performance. And then, a future development. Of course, there's also the more legal and technical side of HR. So we do deal with employment legislation. So there are people that specialize in employment law that work in HR in terms of, what are requirements, what's legally required for you to do. So it's an all-encompassing kind of field to work.
Students and teachers will often ask a probably difficult question: what kind of student should consider a role in HR if they're good at maths or they have this particular skill? Could you give any answer at all to that question, or is it a role for anybody, everybody?
So I think there is a role for everybody. And again, as I said before, if you're more somebody who like work with your hands, you can work in the kitchen or you can work in engineering. But I think you do have your stereotypical kind of hospitality professional. And the reality is about 60 to 70% of the jobs you're going to get in a hotel, they are customer facing, they are guest facing roles. And so for teachers that are looking, okay, who can I advise to go into hospitality? It would be possibly the loudest in the room. So the ones that really like to talk, they like to chat with everybody, they're the ones to help organize, the events. Those are the people that would fit in very well in hospitality roles.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a bit more about how far you can go with apprenticeships?
Yeah, so nowadays there are various levels of apprenticeship. So by leaving school after your GCSEs, you can start a level 3 apprenticeship, which is kind of an A-level foundation. That takes around 12 months to complete, but then you can progress to further qualification levels, all the way up to level 7, which is similar to a bachelor's degrees or a master's degrees. So if you start just after school when you're 16, it will possibly take you about 5 to 6 years to get to the highest diploma level or the highest qualification level within the apprenticeships. And that's all done through work. So you're working, you're earning your money, and then you're learning those skills. And usually in any apprenticeships, you have 1 out of 5 days to apply or to learn some of those requirements to get your qualification. It can be on the job, and for example, in hospitality, there's some specific topics you have to cover over your first 12 or 18 or 2 years apprenticeship that you learn one on the job. But you don't have to start from a level 3 or your initial stage of apprenticeships. You may have decided to go to college and then you now want to get a higher qualification. So after college, you still can join a company doing apprenticeship, and usually would be apprenticeship level 5 or level 7. There are some technicalities in terms of apprenticeship, which is really hard to cover all the details. But in a nutshell, it doesn't matter where you are in your education stage. You can join an apprenticeship. And again, going back to break the stigma, don't see an apprenticeship as not being a formal education route. It is, and you do get the qualification required. Talking about timings, and again, like your apprenticeship level 3 or 4, which would be school leavers or before. If you have decided not to go to college or to university, it takes about 12 to 18 months, depending on the apprenticeship. Some of them take longer. For example, an apprenticeship in engineering, you learn a lot of technical skills from plumbing, electricity. So that can take up to 3 years to do. But on average, first 2 levels are about 12 months to 18 months. Once you get to a higher level apprenticeship, they're usually at 2 years long. And again, if you build it up, it's pretty much as going to college, going to university, going to a master's degrees. But you're doing it, and possibly by the time you're 22, you have already 6 years of learning and working. You can save up a little bit of money to do your own travelings. And if you stay in a hotel, you can get half price for your rooms as well. But that's a little bit of how we work.
Could a student possibly expect to work in different departments depending on the apprenticeship that they are taking?
They can. It usually depends on what the company program is set out. Within Millenium, it's usually you would work in a specific department. You would have cross-exposure to different departments, so you learn how, for example, housekeeping or reception operates. If you're doing a food and beverage or like a restaurant apprenticeship, let's call it. But you won't necessarily have a length of experience. It will take you about 12 months to learn the different areas within a food and beverage department. And that can include working in breakfast, working at the restaurant, working in bars, working in events. So you might have this exposure within the certain department. Usually a high-level apprenticeship would start making sense when you progress. And as I said, there is a lot of opportunities for you to progress quite quickly. Usually, somebody who starts an apprenticeship, they would do their first level apprenticeship, which takes about 12 months or 18 months. It takes another 6 months for you applying what you've learned. But if you apply yourself and you've learned, then that's the time when you're almost ready to become a team leader or supervisor. Once you become this team leader or supervisor, then you open up, like a higher level of management or entry level of management apprenticeships. That again will take about 12 to 18 months, a little bit more. You're applying your learning, and you could possibly then, after 3 years, become an assistant manager in one of the departments, and that will take you to a level 5. If you're working in a specialized department, for example, HR, and we do have 3 people now working within my team that they're doing apprenticeship level 3 qualification. Some of them came from the school route. Some of them worked in different areas of the hotel. So I have currently somebody doing an apprenticeship that came from a food and beverage department. She was duty manager working in the restaurant and is doing her qualification now to progress within the department, learning the skills that are required to work in human resources. And hopefully, in next year, she start higher level and continue progressing, continue getting the qualification to become a full-fledged professional.
Let's consider an apprenticeship in HR. Can you describe what a typical day may look like for a HR apprentice?
Yes. So a lot of apprenticeship is learning while working. So you would do a similar job as an entry-level professional going in HR. Usually when you start working in HR, you work, there is a little bit of administration, paperwork, putting together contracts, putting together, engagement activities, parties for the staff, helping out with engagement surveys. That's what usually you would do when you start your first 6 months. The next step would be helping a little bit with recruitment, with training. So you might start to experience, contacting candidates, talking to them, asking what they're looking for. You start organizing, basic trainings. When somebody joins a company, we hold a induction day when we introduce people to what the company is. And, somebody who is doing an apprenticeship starting in human resource, they would benefit, and they do, by delivering part of those trainings. So usually within your first years, it is hard to say what a day look like because every day is a different, not just in human resources, but in any department. But throughout the year, you would have an exposure to the basic things about human resources. if you do an apprenticeship in the kitchen. And it's interesting, like I think a lot of people got more interested about cooking and working in the kitchen with, TV shows we have now. I won't name any specific chefs or any specific shows, but it is something that, people aspire to be the guy at the end of the day who wear the whites and, you have all this beautiful food coming out. And you start learning how to cut vegetables, how to wash vegetables, how to prepare, what we call a mise en place, like the basics to start cooking. And then after 6 months, where you start, how to descale fish or how to choose cuts of meat. And it is a process, you won't become, a renowned chef within the first 3 years, but an apprenticeship would give you all the basics and technical skills that you need to, one day achieve that position.
Fantastic. Everything you've shared today has been so valuable, Marcelo. Thank you so much. What would you advise students and teachers now that you're not engaging with already to do following this information?
So I think for teachers, keep an open mind to opportunities within your community, within companies that work close to you. There's a lot of companies like Millenium that want to engage more and more with schools. We want to be real partners and help, shape or future workforce generation. I think that would be very beneficial if teachers start thinking about the route after school that not necessarily are academic routes. For students, depending on the time of the year, but start thinking ahead, start getting some experience of what different things are out there, what you're interested most, and through work experience or through, talking to people, that maybe your parents know, your extended family know, what is work. I think don't be afraid of taking a gap year. And, if you don't know what you want to do, that's a chance to start thinking about yourself. And that's, again, a chance to save some money before you decide, I want to continue a career within a specific industry and I want to do an apprenticeship and get my qualifications. Or you know what? No, I think the academic route is the right thing for me. So not rush into what's next if you're not sure. It's quite beneficial for the long term of your future at work. And we're going to spend years and years working. And I didn't know that when I started. But I can say, you're going to spend more time working than you spend at school. So take your time to make the right decision.
Thank you so much, Marcelo.
Thank you for listening today. For any more information and next steps, if you've heard anything today that you want to follow up on, please go to the website at the bottom of the video or speak to your enterprise coordinator. Thank you.